my boss delivered the news without flinching. "Marty, after 16 years, we're cutting your role." He told me to clear my desk by the end of the day. I'm Marty Coleman, 50, and up until that Monday morning, I was a senior systems analyst at Horizon Innovations in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. For nearly 2 decades, I'd been the guy holding the IT department together. From the era of clunky modems to seamless cloud transitions, I'd seen 4 CEOs pass through while I stayed rooted, mentoring every rookie, rescuing every corrupted file, and grinding through weekends and holidays without chasing a raise or a gold star. So when Greg called me into his office, with Karen from HR already perched in a chair, I sensed the axe before he swung it. The vibe in the building had shifted weeks earlier. "I get it," I said with a single nod, then walked out. No fuss, no begging, just a quiet acceptance. Back at my desk, I caught the younger folks stealing glances before burying their noses in their monitors. Word spreads like wildfire. Most of them were programmers I'd trained myself. Solid kids, but they didn't know the bones of our systems or how the older frameworks ticked. Not one could untangle the custom code I'd written or find the admin credentials I'd tucked 3 layers deep in the architecture. I started packing my stuff slowly, deliberately. A family picture. A mug my son crafted in shop class. A tiny succulent that somehow thrived under 16 years of harsh office lighting. Lindsay from sales swung by, her face pinched with worry. "Marty, I just heard. This is insane. You basically built this company." I gave a shrug. Businesses pivot. She wasn't having it. "No heads up, after all you've done?" Her voice climbed, pulling eyes our way. "It's cool," I said softly. "Really?" It wasn't cool, but I wasn't about to throw a fit. As I headed out, Greg stepped into the hallway, watching me leave. No farewell, no handshake, just a cold stare to make sure I was gone. What none of them realized was that I'd become the most indispensable guy in that building. Not because I was some genius, but because I was meticulous. Years back, during a legal mess, I'd set up secure tracking systems to monitor unauthorized access, and I kept backups of everything. In my car, I sat for a beat, staring at the 10-story tower of glass and steel where I'd spent most of my adult life. The badge I'd just turned in? Renewed 15 times. I turned the key and drove off. They had no clue what was coming Wednesday. I'd been with Horizon since it was a scrappy startup in a strip mall. Started when my daughter, Chloe, was in preschool. Now she's wrapping up grad school. The company ballooned, and I grew right alongside it. Turned down headhunters from rival firms because loyalty meant something to me. My wife, Brenda, used to tease that the servers were my second marriage. She wasn't far off. I knew every system, every workaround, every hidden fix for problems the higher-ups didn't even know existed. The infrastructure I'd pieced together weathered 3 buyouts and a parade of shiny new ideas the execs hyped up, then ditched. Greg took over as my boss 4 years ago. Young, MBA type, always calling us tech assets instead of people. He was big on buzzwords, optimization, scalability, disruptive innovation. Early on, I tried explaining the maze of our systems, the layers built up over years of growth. "We need to modernize," he'd say, his eyes sliding past me. 6 months back, he hired a consultant, Tyler Brooks. Polished suit, firm grip, MIT degree plastered all over his LinkedIn. They'd whisper in meeting rooms, voices dropping whenever I passed by. 3 months ago, I noticed my admin access getting tweaked. Subtle stuff, permissions quietly dialed back. I could have raised a stink, but I just observed, logged it all. "You seem off lately," Brenda said one evening as we sat on the deck. "Work okay?" I sipped my beer, nodded. "Just the usual shifts. Seen it before. But this felt different." I was getting sidelined in discussions. Emails about system overhauls stopped landing in my inbox. Junior team members got projects I'd normally run. Then I stumbled on it, a company-wide memo about a digital transformation I'd never been looped into. It detailed a full IT department overhaul, with Tyler Brooks at the helm. My job? Not even a blip on the new org chart. That same day, I spotted something else. Running a routine security check, one of those tasks nobody else bothered with, I noticed odd activity in our accounting software. Steady transfers to a vendor I didn't know, Pinnacle Dynamics. A quick dig showed it was barely a year old, tied to a mailbox at a strip mall. The payments started small but were climbing monthly. I didn't make a peep, just saved the data and kept my eyes open. Sometimes the guy in the background sees it all because everyone assumes he's blind. The morning after they canned me, I sat in my home office, staring at my laptop. No alarm had jarred me awake. No commute loomed, just quiet and the weight of it all. Brenda slid a coffee mug onto my desk, saying nothing. After 19 years together, she knew when to let me simmer. Heading to the market, she said after a while. Need anything? I shook my head. Once Brenda headed out, I slid open the bottom drawer of my desk and grabbed a USB drive, one of a few I kept locked away. Company rules were crystal clear about not taking data off-site, but years back, when the legal folks needed a system to sniff out insider risks, I'd made a case for off-site backups. They'd greenlit it, then let it slip their minds. I plugged the drive into my laptop and started sifting through the files, internal memos, meeting notes I wasn't supposed to have, financial logs no regular employee would ever see. There it was, a detailed trail of payments to Pinnacle Dynamics, totaling $1.7 million over 18 months. The approval chain pointed straight to our CFO, Randall Hayes. I dug deeper, matching dates and numbers until the pattern clicked. The payments lined up with software license renewals we used across the company, but the figures were padded, sometimes by 12%, sometimes by 18%. Subtle enough to skate past a quick glance, but hefty enough to pile up. I pulled up Pinnacle Dynamics business registration. The owner? Curtis Hayes. A few clicks on social media confirmed my hunch, Randall's brother-in-law. They were funneling company cash through inflated charges on legit expenses. I leaned back in my chair, a cold, sharp focus settling over me, not rage, but something steadier, more calculated. For 16 years, I'd fixed glitches, secured data, and kept things humming. I was the dependable guy, the one who never rocked the boat. And they'd tossed me aside like an obsolete server. My phone pinged with a text from Corey, a young analyst I'd coached for the last couple of years. Heard about yesterday. Total garbage they pulled. Brooks is already setting up in your office. I set the phone down, no reply. It was all coming together. Greg and the CFO needed me out before anyone sniffed out their scam. They probably figured the evidence would vanish with me, that I was just some old tech grunt clueless about their financial games. I started typing an email to the board, then paused, my finger hovering over the send key. Too blunt. They'd brush it off as a disgruntled ex-employee's rant. I needed something sharper, undeniable, a way to expose the fraud that couldn't be swept under the rug. I scraped the draft and started plotting. Tomorrow was Wednesday, board meeting day. They'd review quarterly numbers, greenlight bonuses. Perfect timing. I shut the laptop and wandered to the living room window, gazing out at the quiet street in our Indianapolis, Indiana, neighborhood where we'd raised our kids. For the first time since they cut me loose, I cracked a grin. Wednesday morning, I parked across from Horizon Innovations headquarters in downtown Indianapolis, watching folks stream through the glass doors. My laptop sat on the passenger seat, logged into an email account I'd set up years ago for security tests, one that looked like it came from an internal domain but wasn't tracked in the company's main system. At 9:20 a.m. sharp, I made my first play, an email to Greg, subject line urgent, financial discrepancies. I laid out a concise rundown of the Pinnacle payments, just enough to sound legit without mentioning the brother-in-law tie. If Greg wasn't on it, he'd freak. If not, he'd dig. Either way, I'd get a read on him. By 9:55, my phone lit up with Greg's number. I let it roll to voicemail. His message was tense. Marty, we need to talk about that email. Call me now. I didn't. Instead, I drove to a coffee shop in a nearby suburb, fired up my laptop, and waited. At 10:45, an email from Karen in HR landed. Mr. Coleman, we've received troubling communications from you that may breach your exit terms. Cease all contact with Horizon staff and honor your confidentiality agreement. Further actions could lead to legal consequences. So that's their move, intimidate, discredit, cut me off. Thing is, I hadn't signed any exit agreement. At noon, I swung by my bank in Carmel, Indiana, and opened my safe deposit box. Inside was an older backup drive, packed with critical data I hadn't stored on my regular drives. Among the files were the original security protocols I'd built, detailing who had access to which systems and when changes happened. The records showed Randall Hayes had personally pushed for broader access to the financial approval systems 18 months ago, right when the Pinnacle payments kicked off. Back home, I had 3 missed calls: Greg, Karen, and now Tyler Brooks. Didn't expect him to jump in so fast. Curious. I checked my personal email and found a message from Corey, flagged urgent. Marty, they're saying you sent some wild email about financial fraud. Brooks called a closed-door meeting. Everyone's buzzing. They're wiping your access to everything, even old records. What's happening? Poor kid, stuck in the middle. I fired off a short reply: hang tight. Just clearing some things up. By 2 p.m., the landline in my Indianapolis, Indiana, home office rang, a number I hadn't used for work in ages. I picked up but stayed quiet. Marty, it's Randall Hayes, came the CFO's voice, calm but tight. We need to talk about your concerns. I think there's a mix-up. A mix-up? I said, keeping my tone flat. Look, changes like this are rough, he went on. If you've got questions about finances, there's a process, through the board. I cut him off. The board might care a lot about Pinnacle Dynamics and your brother-in-law. His sharp inhale was all I needed to hear. You're making a big mistake, he said after a pause. We can fix this. A solid severance, glowing references, whatever you want. See ya, Randall, I said, and hung up. 10 minutes later, Karen from HR emailed. Out of nowhere, my severance offer had doubled, but it came with a gag order: total silence on company matters. They were flailing, thinking I was just fishing for a payout. They had no idea what was rolling their way. Thursday morning brought everything into focus. I'd spent the night digging through old data, piecing together clues I'd missed before. The Pinnacle scam wasn't Randall's first rodeo. 2 years back, right after he took the CFO gig, another pattern popped up: consulting fees to a firm called Riverside Advisors. Different name, same hustle. Overpriced invoices for work that was half done or never happened. I tracked Riverside's registration. The owner? Lorraine Hayes, Randall's wife. Apparently, she was running a company with no website, no staff, and a P.O. box for an address. Then I hit the jackpot in the email archives. Greg wasn't just aware of the schemes, he'd greased the wheels. In return, his department got fat budget boosts while others got squeezed. He'd been hired after the old IT director started sniffing around weird spending in our department. Even Tyler Brooks was tangled in it. His consulting gig hadn't gone through normal hiring channels. His real job? Not to modernize anything, but to push out the one guy who might spot the money trail, me. The setup was slick. They'd create fake vendors, approve jacked-up payments, and pocket the difference. Since real services were delivered, just at bloated prices, auditors looking for outright fraud wouldn't catch it. Over 3 years, they'd siphoned off $4.5 million. I compiled it all into an airtight report: spreadsheets laying out the payment spikes, registrations tying the firms to Randall's family, emails proving Greg's involvement. Then I made a move they wouldn't see coming. I called up Walter Kim, a board member I'd worked with years ago on a security project. He was mostly retired but still showed up for quarterly meetings. Marty Coleman, he said, picking up on the second ring. Heard you left Horizon. Not my choice, I said. Walter, I need 15 minutes. It's big. A pause. This is why Randall and Greg have been whispering like nervous wrecks. Yesterday's board meeting was a pressure cooker. Probably, I said. He laughed. Always knew you had the dirt. Where can we meet? An hour later, we sat on a bench in a park a few miles from Horizon's headquarters in downtown Indianapolis. I handed him a sealed envelope with a printed summary and a USB drive. It's all there, I told him. Dates, dollars, connections. I don't want my job back. I don't want cash. I just want the truth out. Walter eyed me. Why me? Because you actually read the audits. I've seen you in meetings, asking the hard questions. He nodded slowly. There's a special board session tomorrow. Finance review. Good timing, Marty. He slipped the envelope into his jacket. If this holds up, heads will roll. That's the plan, I said. As I headed to my car, my phone buzzed with a text from Brenda. Some guy named Tyler Brooks stopped by the house looking for you. Said it was urgent. I told him you were out. They were sweating bullets now. Perfect. That afternoon, 2 rival companies reached out with job offers, better roles than I'd had at Horizon, with hefty signing bonuses. word of my availability had spread fast. I brushed them off for now. This wasn't about landing a new gig. It was about settling the score they'd started. That night, using a set of login credentials they'd somehow forgotten to disable, I checked one last thing. One last time, I tapped into Horizon Innovation's email server, using credentials they'd been careless enough to leave active. I set up a message to hit every board member's inbox at 8:01 a.m. Friday. The subject? Before you approve Q2 bonuses, read this. Attached was my full report, every damning detail. Friday morning was crisp and sunny. I sat on my front porch in our Indianapolis, Indiana, neighborhood, sipping coffee, watching the street come to life. No blaring alarm, no rush hour grind, just me, waiting. At exactly 8:01 a.m., my email landed in the board's inboxes like a grenade. By 8:22, my phone started buzzing with unknown numbers, probably board members' aides trying to track me down. I let every call roll to voicemail. At 9 a.m., the Emergency Finance Committee meeting would kick off. Walter Kim would be there, my envelope and USB in hand, gauging faces as my email sparked chaos. At 9:30, Corey texted, "Cops are here. Hayes and Greg are getting grilled in separate rooms. Brooks looks like he's gonna puke. What did you do?" I didn't reply. Everything was unfolding just as I'd planned. By 10:05 a.m., Horizon's General Counsel, Diane Larson, called. I picked it up this time. "Mr. Coleman, this is Diane from legal. We need you to come to the office immediately to discuss the information you sent to the board." "I'm good over the phone," I said, cool and steady. "This really needs to be face-to-face," she pressed. "Nope," I cut in. "Everything I know is in that report. And I've got copies stashed in multiple secure spots. If anything happens to me or my family, those files go straight to the SEC, IRS, and a few newsrooms." Dead air. Then, in a tightly controlled tone, she said, "Mr. Coleman, the board is treating this with utmost urgency. Several executives are already on leave pending a full investigation. Your cooperation would be appreciated." "I've cooperated," I said. "I gave you the whole playbook. My job's done." After she hung up, I drove to a diner 20 miles outside Indianapolis, in a quiet town called Zionsville. No need to make it easy for anyone to find me today. Over a burger and fries, I checked my phone. Local business blogs were already buzzing. Horizon Innovations execs probed for financial misconduct. No names yet, but they'd leak soon. At 2:30 p.m., Walter Kim called. "It's a slaughterhouse," he said, skipping the pleasantries. "Randall cracked the second we showed him your evidence, trying to cut a deal, pointing fingers at Greg. Greg's denying it all, claiming he's clean. Brooks is swearing he was just a consultant, clueless about the money. The board's not buying any of it. All three are suspended, and forensic accountants are coming Monday. Early numbers say at least $4.6 million siphoned off over 3 years, maybe more." I nodded to myself. My estimate had been damn close. "The board wants to meet with you," Walter added. "Not about your old job. They're carving out a new role, Chief Security Officer, reporting straight to them." I'd seen this coming, but it still caught me off guard. "I'll think it over," I said. That evening, I laid it all out for Brenda. She listened, quiet as a stone, then asked, "What's your next move?" That was the question. The revenge was done, clean, surgical. The guys who'd shoved me out were on their way to ruin, probably staring down indictments. Justice had landed, cold and exact. But going back to Horizon? That meant stepping back into a place that had spit me out after 16 years of loyalty. Could I stomach that? Did I even want to? "I need to chew on it," I told her. Later that night, I fired up my laptop and posted a single line to my dusty LinkedIn profile: "Don't torch bridges, just let them crumble under their own corruption." Within minutes, old coworkers started pinging me. The story was spreading like wildfire. The quiet IT guy had taken down 3 big shots without ever raising his voice. By Monday, everyone at Horizon Innovations would know exactly who they'd written off. Monday morning, I strolled into the company's headquarters in Indianapolis, Indiana, wearing a suit I hadn't dusted off in years. The security guard blinked twice, then scrambled to print me a visitor badge. "Good to see you, Mr. Coleman," he said, with a nod that carried new weight. The elevator ride to the executive floor was silent. I'd never had a reason to set foot up here before. Now, the boardroom was waiting for me. 10 board members sat around a sleek mahogany table. Walter Kim gave me a subtle nod as I walked in. The interim CEO, who'd been the COO, shifted in her seat, looking uneasy. "Mr. Coleman," she started, "thank you for coming. The issue you've uncovered is unlike anything we've faced." I stayed quiet, letting her words hang. "The fraud's worse than we thought," she went on. "The forensic team pegged it at $5.3 million in misdirected funds. Criminal charges are in the works." I kept my eyes steady, waiting. Walter cleared his throat. "Marty, the board voted unanimously to create a new role, Chief Information Security Officer, with full executive perks and a direct line to us. We want you to take it." I placed a folder on the table. "My terms are in there," I said. "Non-negotiable." The CEO flipped it open, scanning the page. Her brow arched. "Complete audit power across all departments? Veto rights on tech-related financial calls?" I gave a single nod. "That's right. You lost $5.3 million because no one was paying attention. Now someone will." The room went still. "You've got until noon," I said, standing. "I've got other offers on the table." As I headed for the door, Walter called out, "Did you have this mapped out from the start, Marty?" I paused, hand on the knob. I didn't plan on getting canned after 16 years. Everything after that? Just me doing my job, spotting weak points and locking them down. At 10:42, my phone rang. They'd signed off on every condition. 6 months later, I sat in my new corner office, reviewing security plans for the next quarter. The view stretched across the Indianapolis skyline, a constant reminder of how far things had shifted. Randall Hayes had copped a plea on multiple fraud counts, trading cooperation for a lighter sentence, still hefty. Greg was battling the charges, claiming he was in the dark, despite the mountain of emails saying otherwise. Tyler Brooks had skipped to Argentina, but extradition papers were in motion. Most of the money was clawed back, enough to keep Horizon from taking a serious hit. My old team now answered to me. I bumped Corey up to handle daily operations. The kid had chops, he just needed someone to give him a shot. A knock at my door pulled me from my thoughts. Brenda stood there, grinning. "Lunchtime?" she asked. I grabbed my coat. "Let's roll." As we passed through the IT department, chatter dipped for a second. Not out of fear, respect. These folks knew the score. They knew I could have burned the place down but chose to save it instead. In the elevator, Brenda gave my hand a quick squeeze. "You good?" I mulled it over. The fire that had fueled me those first days after the firing had cooled. What was left wasn't joy, exactly, more like a deep, steady calm. A job finished. "Yeah," I said. "I'm solid." Outside, the October breeze hit us as we walked to a spot down the street. My phone pinged with a text from Walter Kim, "Board greenlit your security budget hike. Full agreement, no pushback." I cracked a small smile. No debates, no second guessing, just trust. Brenda caught my look. "What's up?" "Nothing," I said, pocketing the phone. "Just thinking about bridges. Some fall apart when greed gets too heavy. Others, once you rebuild them right, hold stronger than ever. I'd made this one bulletproof.